the streams to catch up and verify that we actually have... Oh, I can see myself on the stream. I think we're good.
Which stream do you see yourself?
On Twitch, I can see the stream. YouTube says stream ended 46 seconds ago. We may be victim to the way YouTube determines the end of an event. But if you start pushing again to the same stream key, maybe it'll...
Twitch is smarter than...
Hang on, because it's live over on Twitch. I'm telling the YouTube folks it's live over on Twitch. Twitch is fine. Twitch is just like, oh, there's data, I'll show it now. YouTube seems to think it's clever, and when the stream input stopped, it ended the event.
So that is a problem for the recording point of view. Should we create a new YouTube event?
I think that's I think all we can do right now is go and quickly create a... Oh, this guy's given us a... Oh, it may have already started one automatically. Okay, there is an event. Someone found it. Okay, new stream has begun, which says December 11, 2018. Somehow it has gone to a different event.
Nice.
So I am going to go and very quickly update the... Hang on, let me go back.
Oh, into the...
In the other one, tell folks where it has... Oh, come on, so laggy. Okay. All right, so folks can go and see it over there. Okay, so they now know I need to go over to the community site, change this to the embed link, which of course... I'm sorry, folks. I gotta... Nothing is instant, so to fix all this, it takes 20 seconds or more to update everything individually, and I need to...
Can we count that as our dramatic zoom out?
Yeah,
somehow?
Well, this is certainly enough drama for one show. And of course, YouTube really is quite user hostile when it comes to doing these type of things, unfortunately. Like every little aspect of this, unless you put all the work in to use their APIs to go and automate it all, if you just want to do it with copy and paste, every step is actually a bunch of manual moves. Like even copying the embed link, they don't give you a way to just get the URL. What you get is the full iframe embed link, and then you have to go and munge it. So let me do that. Let me delete that. Let me see. So liveasp.net homepage should be updated to the correct stream. The stream title is incorrect. We'll change that in post. The Twitch link.
We're going to have to edit the two videos together too.
Yeah, and then we'll have to edit the videos together in post for the archive, which is fine. Okay, I think we are good everywhere. People on Twitch are sharing, and people on YouTube are sharing the link elsewhere, so people can either watch on Twitch or they can watch on the new stream. I'm seeing 62 folks on the new stream, so 61 folks on the new stream, so that's a good indication, I think, that everyone has moved over. So without further ado, let's get into the next segment. So people are going to ask me questions, is that right?
Yes. Okay, you said some people already had?
I had some questions posted on my Twitter feed, so let's, hang on, I just need to reply to folks on my Twitter feed who are saying the stream died.
I will ask for, so if people can ask a question and say question at the beginning of their question, that'll help us spot them.
Yes, that will. All right, I will just, so someone asks, Dark Mystical Corey on Twitter asked me 14 hours ago, right now, .NET Core has support for Visual Basic, but just for libraries and console apps. Do you guys know if there will be ASP.NET Core with Visual Basic support? So, to date, the Visual Basic Visual Basic.NET support in .NET Core has been fairly limited. It's not the full Visual Basic support. You don't have all the usual namespaces and capabilities that you would normally get with the Visual Basic.NET Runtime. You could have .vb, basically all you have was compiler support. So you could have a .vb file and it would compile, but you didn't get all the Visual Basic specific APIs, and we certainly didn't have Visual Basic support in the app models like ASP.NET Core as mentioned here. As part of .NET Core 3 and the addition of the Windows Desktop app workload, we will be bringing full-fledged Visual Basic support into .NET Core 3 for those workloads, for the Windows desktop workloads. It is fair to say there are a lot more WinForms applications that have Visual Basic than there are web applications, based on our understanding of telemetry and those things, and talking to customers. And same again for WPF. So we will be bringing full VB support, certainly or vastly improved VB support over, so you can take your VB WinForms or WPF app and move that to .NET Core 3. Currently, we don't plan to do any further work in supporting VB in ASP.NET Core. You can create an ASP.NET Core sort of web API MVC application today using VB. I have a sample on my GitHub repo that shows how you can do that. We don't have templates for it, and there is no Razor support for VB. So we used to have VB HTML back in the old ASP.NET MVC system, but the new Razor is strictly C# only. And we have zero plans to bring VB back into Razor. And with the new Blazor stuff, then there's going to be a new file extension with .razor that will definitely only be C#. So we just don't see the customer use that warrants the amount of work it takes to maintain both languages once you go beyond, I just have a VB file and I want it to compile. So we're still a little undecided as to whether templates for ASP.NET Core will show up. Templates are quite a lot of work to maintain. As I said, it's possible today. There's nothing stopping anyone in the community from building an ASP.NET Core VB template package which contains templates for using the features that would work. But we will not put a template in Visual Studio that is an ASP.NET Core web application that uses VB if Razor doesn't work, because why would you have CS/HTML files in a project that you can't get IntelliSense for? You can't have CS and VB files in the same project and get IntelliSense for both. That's just not how the project system in Visual Studio works today. So you will not see that template. But if the community wanted to produce templates and make them installable, that might be, for the customers who do want to try doing that, then that seems like the right size community and audience that could facilitate that. Next question. I need to know if there is any way, and this is from M.A. Hawari on my Twitter feed. I need to know if there's any way to reference the JavaScript and CSS files in .NET Core 22500 SDK empty template project other than using bower.json. So we removed sort of the Bower setup from our templates a while back when it was announced that Bower was kind of end of life. And we haven't replaced it in the templates yet. So there's no sort of out of the box file new ASP.NET Core and then go and update the client libraries. You have to do some work. We did release LibMan, or the web tooling team released the LibMan command line and Visual Studio support that lets you do sort of simple client-side library management, but we have not integrated that into the templates for ASP.NET Core or ASP.NET yet. That is currently being investigated as part of the 3.0 wave, but I don't have a firm answer as to whether that will happen in 3.0. You can certainly configure it yourself. So my instruction to you right now would be, if you want the simplest possible thing, configure LibMan in your ASP.NET Core projects after you create them and use that to manage bringing in the client-side libraries. And then, obviously if you need anything more than basic client-side library acquisition, you need bundling and all that type of stuff, then you have to move to something like Webpack. Or Gulp, or whatever it is, whatever's hot or whatever suits your workflow right now.
Okay.
I
mean, really, I think people don't. LibMan is really a simple solution that hits so many use cases. Like, if you want to pull in precompiled libraries that are coming off a CDN,
right,
that's a good solution.
Well, there's also .NET Unpack. So Mark Rendell wrote the .NET command line tool, global tool that uses unpkg.com, which is a live proxy / mirror of all NPM packages. And so you can bring in any NPM package file assets into your project very simply. It's statically, it just copies them in and then it's kind of done. There's no manifest that really maintains them after that, as far as I know. And then there's JS Deliver and other CDNs that have, most of the CDNs now, the ones that I've looked at, CDN.js is the only one that's really, is the biggest one being used on public sites, and it still maintains its own repository. You have to submit files to their GitHub repo, but they have some policies that make it a little difficult to use for all libraries. For example, they don't accept preview versions, and so we couldn't put the Signal.js client up there until we released, for example, which was a little annoying. And so JS Deliver is an example of one that actually mirrors GitHub and NPM completely. And so you request a file through their pathing scheme from a GitHub repo, it'll go and fetch it, put it on their edge servers, and then you can get it from there, similarly from NPM. So there are options available and there are tools available to bring them in, but we don't have any by default out of the box just yet. Okay, I am out of questions on my Twitter feed. That was easy.
Oh boy. Well, there are several. Let me try and batch them up for you.
Scroll up and go down. Yep.
Yeah, let me see. Did we ever talk about your new laptop?
Yeah, so my new laptop is the Lenovo X1 Extreme. Now, of course, it was new, but CES is on today, and so nothing is new anymore because this is old and ancient because Lenovo just announced all their new laptops. God damn it. And so this was lovely 2 months ago or a month ago, and now it's just ancient and old. No, it's an 8th gen hexa-core i7. With vPro, it's a 4K HDR panel, which is lovely. It's under 4 pounds, which is insane because it's a 15.6-inch laptop. 32 gig of RAM and a terabyte of super fast SSD with Windows facial recognition, Windows Hello, and fingerprint. And it has an active pen as well on the screen. It basically has literally every feature you could want. HDMI 2 out. There's 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. It has a dedicated Ethernet port, via dongle. It's a fantastic piece of machinery in terms of raw hardware. I still hate all laptops in existence because I always find something wrong with them. But this is probably the best one that I hate the least that I've used in a bunch of years. And I have the dock that comes with it, which is ridiculous. It's like a $400 dock with every port imaginable, and it has like 2 power supplies you have to plug into it. Like, I'm not kidding. It has 2 power supplies you have to plug into the dock at the same time. One of them is a 230 watt power supply that gets passed directly into the laptop. It'll suck that much power up if you're driving it. And I can drive, I drive 2 external 4K panels as well as the 4K panel on here simultaneously, and I think it supports a 3rd external 4K panel, which I haven't plugged in yet, because it has an NVIDIA 1050 GTX 1050 Ti in here as well. So a lot of power. But
what's
as usual,
the battery life?
Oh yeah, if you unplug it and you run it at high performance, you'll get 3 hours. But if you drag it down a couple of notches and can live with Outlook rendering 5 seconds to render an email, then you can go most of the day on it. So, but in my workflow, I'm usually tethered, so somewhere or another. I'm not plugged in right now. So
nice.
Okay.
Okay, question about, and this comes up from time to time, reporting. So the SQL Server reporting services have a viewer.
We've had this ask ever since MVC was released in 2009, whatever it was, 2008. The last I heard, and yeah, I'm just going to go for it. I don't know how official any of this was. The last I heard, the SSRS team, someone asked, are they abandoned? They're still a team. It's the same org that does Power BI. Is my understanding. They have plans to overhaul the SSRS sort of infrastructure on with a new control / sort of GUI system that is more client focused rather than what they've had in the past, which was the ones that people would drop into their applications were very much like they were web forms controls. And so moving those to new things was a massive amount of work because you're throwing everything out basically and moving it to a new platform. So the last time I heard from them regarding this, it was that they were going to move to a client-based thing, which means that you can wrap that up in any server-based rendering tech that you like, because it just has to emit the right data for the client to render. I don't have any timelines for folks. I don't have anything like that. I can kick it up the org chart and across the org chart again and see if I can get something a little more committed. But we haven't. Sorry, I don't have anything more concrete than that. It is an ask that we get a lot. We understand that there are a lot of customers who use it because it is a fantastic drop-in reporting solution for a lot of folks who have deployed SQL Server reporting services. Because it's self-service reporting too, it's a whole authoring experience as well as the visual experience. There's also Power BI, so if Power BI suits your needs, then I would encourage folks to go off and look at Power BI because their client integration technology is more so like the iframe / rendered there, delivered into your app via an iframe type of thing. So that can work anywhere, whereas SSRS requires you to host a component in your application in the current technology. So look at Power BI if it suits you. If you really just need SSRS, then I don't have a good answer for you just yet. So.
Cool. Here's a question: if there are any docs on consuming generic or custom OAuth providers, all they can find is information on Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub.
Docs on
I
how to
don't.
build custom OAuth providers, is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is we have a generic OpenID Connect provider, which will point to anything. If you want to build your own OAuth provider, frankly, I would just look at the source code for one of the other ones. Would be where I would start, or look at is it Kevin Chalet's suite of
Oh,
OpenAuth
right.
plugins? Because he in that community, I understand, has like a large set of third-party OAuth based or other open authentication, OpenID based providers. So they have like GitHub and they have like everything anyone ever asked for. They wrapped up and created, and there's a GitHub repo just full of them. I don't have that link off the top of my head, but I've seen it. I know it exists.
Cool.
As opposed to, I don't believe we have a custom doc that's just like, yeah, here's how you write an OAuth provider from scratch, because it's just not many customers have to do that. But it might be a good blog post for someone to do, but I would look at the source code.
Cool. All right. Any plans? Excuse me. Any plans for Web API model binders to support immutable types and deserializing via constructor instead of public properties?
Ooh, that is a good question. So the last time this came up was when I was implementing web forms model binding. And this question came up with regards to supporting anonymous objects, because C# anonymous objects are initialized via the constructor, which is private, if I recall, which made it very difficult. And it was possible with one of the model binding systems that we had at one point. We've had like 5 different model binding code bases, and one of them supported the idea of a custom model binder that could do this. I don't have a good answer regarding ASP.NET Core's model binding. That would be a good issue to post on GitHub to sort of gauge community response and see if there's already a good answer for that. I don't have one off the top of my head, sorry, but that's a good question.
All right. Question from Benjamin, which is topical to this week. Will the workshops at NDC use Preview 2 of ASP.NET Core 3.0?
No. Absolutely not. No, our current plan, we just met about this yesterday, is to update the workshop for 2.2. Which is what it was advertised as, so I don't plan on changing that. And because we added a lot of great features in 2.2, specifically around API development, which we do a lot of in the workshop. And so, in fact, a lot of the features in 2.2 were actually
inspired.
Thank you. Inspired by what we learned in building applications in the workshop. It's like, a lot of this stuff seems repetitive, or you shouldn't have to write that much code to do this basic stuff. So we built features to remove a lot of that, and so we're going to update it for that. Frankly, 3.0 Preview is just not ready to teach a workshop on for ASP.NET Core customer, or for anyone really at the moment. There's no designer support for video. There's no templates in Visual Studio. Like it's just too early, and there's only been one preview. There will be another preview soon. And then there'll be a preview after that, and a preview after that, and it will get better, preview to preview to preview, before we get to something that I would say, yes, let's go and teach a workshop on this now. But it is certainly not going to be ready by the end of this month.
We did talk about potentially trying to incorporate some newer preview stuff into there, like some templates or packages, if we can.
Yes.
Aspirational. If we
yeah.
Can
So what we were talking about there was the things I talked about in the end of my announcement, 2.2 announcement blog post, which were the things that didn't make it into 2.2, but that we still want to ship before 3.0. And they are mostly the things that start integrating more third-party sort of solutions. So that was the API authorization based on Identity Server. It was the Open API / Swagger document generation and client generation. So like you had to generate a C# or TypeScript client for your Open API endpoint using things like AutoRest and NSwag. And then a template that brings all of those together so that you can say, hey, create me an API app with a Spark client that uses authorization and generates the client automatically based on my API on the server, right? So that sort of bundle of things, and the HTTP REPL. They were all the things that we talked about during 2.2 dev that didn't actually make it into 2.2. All of those except the REPL, we still intend to get out in customers' hands before 3.0, and I intend to use those in the workshop at the end of this month. So that gives you an indication of where they are and how quickly we should be able to get those up and running for customers, except the REPL. The REPL has been pushed out to 3.0. There is a copy of it on NuGet right now. It has some horrible bugs, which makes it not work on Linux and stuff like that. And so we found a bunch of issues that just prevented us from being able to ship it on top of 2.2. So that's currently paged into the 3.0 work.
Cool.
Okay.
Question, when is ASP.NET Core 2.2 going to be available on Azure Gov?
I did see an email about that. Let me see if I can find that. Azure Gov 2.2. I think it's this quarter. Let me see if I can get, here we go. .NET Core 2.2 availability for Azure Government Cloud. It says in this email. So again, not official, but the best data I have indicates available the second week of January 19th. So the second week of January this year. So
okay.
That means this week or next week, I guess.
Cool.
So very soon.
All right. Let me see. Will Razor components be integrated in such a way that I can enhance Razor pages? Will Razor components be integrated in such a way that I can enhance Razor pages with components on parts of the page only?
Yes.
So
yes. I'm very happy to announce that yes, that is definitely, that was one of our design goals, was we didn't want to reboot the Razor stack again. And then say, great, take all your apps and just port them all over or migrate them over to this completely different Razor stack. Because the new Razor component stack has differences. It has things that you can't do in there compared to the existing Razor stack with regards to how it compiles, with regards to the application model, because it's designed to solve a different, run in different places and solve a different set of problems. So we were like, well, how do we bridge the gaps between, I have a set of Razor views or Razor pages, which are basically the same thing, they just get routed to differently, right? Which is very much request response, returned from a view or returned as a result of a route, versus a Razor component, which is a stateful thing. It's designed to have state that lives and responds to client-side events and stuff. How do we put these together? So what we are going to support is you can take a Razor component and basically render it inside a Razor view, kind of like a partial or a view component today. So if you have a Razor component, I build my Damian's great Razor component and it does whatever, you will be able to basically call that or invoke it like a tag helper or a partial or a view component today inside your Razor view / page. When I say Razor view, that includes Razor pages, okay? Then that Razor component will render in the context of that Razor view. And if you are just doing a one-shot, hey, I'm returning the view from an MVC controller action, it'll just render and then that's the end of it, okay? So at one time, it renders out to an HTML string and you're done. But you can also have that Razor component support interactivity so that once it hits the browser, it can establish a WebSocket connection or a Signal connection back to the server just for that little island, just for the little component that's inside the overall view. And then that can respond to client-side events using the Blazor server-side technology, right? So that now when you click the button inside the component or hit the drop-down or whatever it is, that actually sends that event up to the server over the Signal connection, does the re-rendering on the Razor components engine running in your server app, and then sends the delta, the DOM, literally the DOM delta back down to the client and updates the DOM in real time. It is an island of Blazor server-side inside a Razor view. Now, the working title for this technology is called Razor or component circuits. So the idea being that you have a Razor component or any component, they're not really limited to Razor, they're somewhat separate, but the one we're shipping is Razor components, that can establish a circuit back to the server, and that circuit is live so that it's an interactive experience. Then we intend, and we haven't got all the details in this yet, but we intend to support things like, well, I don't want that to be alive the whole time if the user isn't using it. So I want to be able to tombstone that circuit away and maintain the state associated with that component. And that could happen automatically like a mobile app does, right? So if you don't touch it for 30 seconds, maybe it gets tombstoned away on the server and the client, and then as soon as you touch it again, it establishes it again and it wakes up the state in the server after a short delay, and now the interactivity is back. So all that is planned as part of the .NET Core 3 Razor component story. Our goal is by the end of this month is to have a lot more public detail available about our plans around that, the order in which we'll implement those things and what previews will show up and what that experience will be and what customers can expect. So I am super excited I'm actually genuinely super excited, not just like Microsoft super excited. I'm genuinely super excited about that technology, our ability to take the Razor server-side Blazor component rendering stuff and shove it inside an existing Razor view as a little island of interactivity. If you don't want the interactivity and you just want to render the component once and then have it be static HTML, we will totally support that as well. So don't fret.
Okay, let me see. Will UWP have .NET Core 3?
Not that I'm aware. I don't have anything particular to announce about that.
Okay.
This is the ASP.NET community stand-up, so.
Yeah. Question from Dustin: Will you have, or how do you come up with projects like Blazor? Was it a toy project that turned more serious, or do you allocate resources?
Oh, yeah. So Blazor, we should do a separate show on this at some point. I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but now that it's actually been committed to, we should talk about the story of Blazor, because it is quite. And there's actually a PowerPoint deck, an internal deck that Dan put together that talks about the story of Blazor, and like from its inception all the way through to where it is now. The short story is that Steve Sanderson is a crazy magician person, and he had an idea for a demo and decided, hey, I'm going to, in 9 days, put together a demo that shows that you can render .NET on the client, and I'll build this little SPA framework that goes on top of it by hacking Razor. And he did it. And then he showed David and I this demo on the showroom floor of NDC Oslo, 2 years ago or something. And I remember distinctly like looking at the screen and looking at David and looking at the screen and like being speechless while he was explaining how he hacked this incredible demo together. And in fact, there's a recording of Seth Juarez did an interview with David and I like 20 minutes after we'd seen this demo. And we were just like, oh my God, you don't believe what we just saw, and you can watch the talk. It's actually kind of amazing. This had happened in conjunction with Dan Roth, who's the PM for Blazor, asking us about WebAssembly. He was like, oh, we should be looking at WebAssembly. We're super early at that stage. It's like, maybe we could get WebAssembly.NET running in WebAssembly. It would be amazing to like let people run their .NET apps in the client. And David and I were like, yeah, that's just like, that's for doing OpenGL, WebGL games and stuff. That doesn't have any legs just yet. And then Steve did that demo and that turned a corner. So then it became an experiment. We figured out how to sort of do an open experiment without committing to a project, which is something we'd never done before, so that was interesting. And we were able to get very little amount of resources assigned to it as a part of that experiment, and then all the way through to the article you showed just before, which is our commitment to actually bring it to product. So anyway, that's the short version.
Cool. Let me see. In which preview will EF6 on .NET Core 3 be available?
Don't know. I don't know. I'd have to ask Diego or Arthur. So
okay.
It might be preview 2. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since we've had an EF focus show too. That might be good to have an update. Why is there no big project tutorial using SignalR? All SignalR tutorials through a very basic public chat app. I would disagree with this in that there are some good ones, but I had to look around. They were on, for instance, the Azure SignalR service has some pretty good ones. There's a flight tracker app.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that feedback a few times, though. I think it is the SignalR docs themselves.
Right.
Could probably do with some alternate samples.
Tutorials,
that aren't the standard sort of chat stuff. Frankly, I think it requires a lot more work, because to build real-time into other more functional apps, obviously you need the other more functional app that has a good need for it. Interactive forms is a good one. So when you've got the need to track changes that multiple users might be doing on the same data at the same time with conflict resolution and optimistic concurrency versus pessimistic and all that. How do you do all that type of stuff when you add real-time? That would be a really cool tutorial, I think, personally. So.
Cool. Let me see. Nick asks if you write your code using the pen. This goes back a bit.
No. All I do is I double-click the button on the end of the pen, and it takes a screenshot and brings up the Windows Ink workspace, and then I can annotate that, and then it copies it to the clipboard. That is literally what I've used it for so far, but just that is pretty cool.
Question here on reading cookies from Razor pages from classic ASP pages. And I think the bigger question is kind of interoperating between, right? The cookie interoperability.
Sorry, ask that again. I didn't quite get all that.
So how to read from Razor pages, to read a classic ASP cookie in Razor pages.
We need more detail because a cookie is a cookie is a cookie.
Yeah, you just read
which
the
cookie are you trying? If it's an auth cookie, then we don't have any support for the classic ASP auth in ASP.NET Core. We have support the other way. There is support for the new identity cookies in previous ASP.NET on an updated version of the identity for that. But if it's a different cookie, you'd have to let us know what cookie it is you're trying to read.
Let me see. Question on C++ client for SignalR, C++ for core SignalR.
Right. So as part of 3.0, there were a couple of clients that were thrown into the mix. One was the C++ client, and 2 was a Swift client. And my understanding is we're currently committed to doing the C++ client for 3.0 or in the 3.0 timeline, because the C++ client doesn't ship in .NET Core 3, right? So it can ship at any time, frankly. But in the same time frame, the C++ client and the Swift clients were the ones that we were looking at doing next.
Cool.
Actually, I think there's a prototype of the C++ client already. I think it's in the SignalR repo somewhere.
So here's a question that makes me happy. Somebody said, "I have not seen this show before. Who is Damian?" And people on the chat, let them know who you are. But I think that's great that Twitch is expanding folks that are jumping on. So this is very cool. Yeah, we've been doing this. How many shows now?
We hit 150 like a couple months ago, right? So if we actually were on every week this year, we'd hit 200 before the end of the year.
Wow. We
could have a big party.
Yep.
We could do an in-person event like all those YouTube entertainers do. We could take over a McDonald's or something. No, I'm just kidding. Who the hell?
Remember, somebody wanted us to do a fireside sipping Scott show.
Didn't Imo do one of those with that? And John Skeet's been reading the C# spec in front of
That's pretty impressive.
I don't know what we'd read. We could read some source code. I don't know.
Stuart asked, Steve Sanderson talked about some sort of state management in Blazor, like Redux for .NET.
Yeah, so I alluded to that when I sort of was geeking out about the component circuits before. We don't have, again, we hope to have some firmer plans to share with folks by the end of this month. It all comes down to how much we can fit into the Core 3.0 sort of timelines. Right now, there isn't anything in Blazor. I think there are some examples of how you might do that, and the community has offered some ports of Redux and like style stuff and other sort of state containers, or you can just do very simple stuff yourself. If we want to implement something like I talked about, like circuit tombstoning or hibernation, then that's going to require that there's some contract that says, well, great, where's your state? So I can tombstone it and then bring it back. So whether that means we implement a state paradigm of some sort, or there's a contract that you can implement so that we can talk to your state server, I don't know yet. So that's something that will be figured out over the coming weeks.
Let me see.
Eric Sampson, who asked the original question re OAuth, has just clarified, saying it was documentation regarding consuming a generic OAuth provider, not writing a provider. So I'm actually not clear what is meant by a generic OAuth provider. Do we have a generic OAuth provider? Is that what that is? Because I know we have a generic OpenID Connect provider, or OIDC provider. Do we have a generic OAuth provider?
I honestly don't know how it's implemented. They're so different between them. Everybody kind of has to, it's kind of OAuth, but we did it this way.
Yeah.
I did also look up. You had mentioned Kevin Chilette's thing. So that's ASP.NET Contrib, and I've got the link for that, and I'll paste that into the chat.
Fantastic.
So, yep. Let me see. Can Blazor access the microphone and webcam as a stream?
So Blazor runs in the JavaScript sandbox, and so as long as there is an API in the browser to expose the webcam, local webcam as a stream, which there is, and the microphone as a stream, then you can, in theory, create a wrapper.NET package or API that will bridge that JavaScript API into .NET via the JavaScript bridge from WebAssembly. It is all technically possible. So I'm not as up to speed on the Blazor contributor stuff. I know that there's a lot of Blazor sort of wrapper packages available that bridge to browser APIs into .NET. I'm not aware of any that do streaming APIs. It doesn't mean they don't exist, I'm just not aware of them. I don't know of any technical reason why that could not be done. As in, yeah, you get a typed array with a bunch of bytes in it from JavaScript from a given API, and then we have to map that to a .NET stream using the streaming semantics. I don't know why that wouldn't work. So there might be a reason, but I don't know one.
Okay. Let me see. Trying to kind of filter through plans for Core RT becoming the WASM runtime for Blazor.
Yeah, so that's from Akira GTX. Question, are there any plans for Core RT becoming the WASM runtime for Blazor at some point? The short answer is no. So, and we'll have more to announce regarding the future of the various .NET runtimes this year. I don't have anything to announce today, but Core RT, we don't have any plans that I'm aware of to turn that into the WASM runtime. Currently, Blazor uses the mono runtime in the client, and for the time being, for the foreseeable future, that is what we'll continue to be investing in to do that.
All right. Question from Alan. Any reason I can't install LibMan in my corporate environment?
I can't really answer that for you. I mean, if you're asking me to think of like strawmans or like devil's advocates type stuff, it's like, why would someone not be able to install LibMan? If you have I don't know. I mean, it's included in Visual Studio.
Yeah.
LibMan it was in by 15.8, it was included by default. So it's there. Now, LibMan doesn't do much. You have to point it at a provider where it gets the files from. That's usually where you would get more potential issues. It's like, oh, well, yeah, we don't allow downloads from unpackaged.com or cdn.js or whatever. So that's where you would get the issue.
Okay. Which would be interesting, because if they're doing that, then they're blocking common JavaScript libraries. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the internet won't work for you.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that's about all the questions that I'd seen.
Okay.
We had one nice one maybe to wrap up. Dane asks is what he should have for lunch.
That's what I ask myself every day. Since I've eliminated a bunch of stuff from my diet last year, I don't have grain anymore, and I don't have a lot less carbs, a lot less sugar. It's a lot harder to eat at like the cafes and stuff. So I tend to drive somewhere to buy food, or I bring it in from home if I've got it. But given it's the end of the holiday season, we don't have any food at home. We ate it all. And it was all food that I wouldn't want to eat now in the new year anyway. Plus our power went out yesterday because we had this terrible windstorm 2 days ago. So it was out for over a day, and all the food in the fridge and the freezer is spoilt now, and we have to buy new food. So I don't have anything at home. So I don't know. Have something that you enjoy. Spoil yourself. You deserve it.
That sounds great. That's probably a good place to wrap up.
Awesome.
Dramatic zoom.
Dramatic zoom. Are you going to do the manual dramatic zoom for us? Here it goes. Oh my God, it's all we needed was Golnez in the room all along. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.